And that's why these numbers are very, very important. It's not that I'm throwing up against the wall and say, any, mini, miny, mo. No, I'm looking at data to make sure that we go down that path to show how we move forward and where we go. Which customer, I walk into them and say, which customer do you want us to get rid of?
Uh-huh.
Well, I don't like it when these call. I say, yeah, they don't call, but they pay on time. They do
Uh-huh.
whatever they got to get done, and they have what they get. But let's look at their cases. And the reason why they call is because I'm looking at first time resolutions is really, really low.
Right.
I'm looking at when they call in, your attitude has shown, and your attitude is representing that in their case to the point where how about if we change? How about if we take this opportunity? I learned not to use the word change. We have an opportunity here
Yes, 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 yes.
to make this better.
Yes, yes. Well,
But without data, I can't do that, right? You can't do that.
well, there's that blocking and tackling that you're talking about. And today we've got our buddy Corey with us. Corey, let everyone know, how did you get wrapped up in this crazy MSP world?
Yeah, man, I've been in IT since like the early 90s, man. IBM, Cisco, Dell, EMC did the world. And then when I was I was at Cisco and I decided to do an MBA program. And part of my MBA program, I had to write a paper or what my final project would be. And I just did an IT services company, right? Just kind of threw something out there because,
Yeah.
it's where we were, how we support. Went through that process and, I had the great business minds and my professors looking at it and they was like, hey, this is really good. You might
Yeah.
want to try this thing,
Nice.
and I was like, yeah, whatever. I just need to get a grade so I can get my degree and I'm out. Right. So what happened was is I did. I got it, took it and got one customer. And that customer is still my customer today, man, over 18 years later, they're still there. And then I tried my best to kill that customer because I didn't really want that customer. It was just kind of a deal. And obviously that didn't work. And
Uh-huh.
then another one came, and then another one came. So it was a side hustle for a long time. But I always knew I wanted to bring enterprise class services down to small businesses, especially on the nonprofit side, and really help those guys grow and secure because I knew there was a need.
Yeah.
And so definitely knew there was a need.
Well, that's awesome. I'll tell you that I've never heard that kind of origin story other than my own. 1999, I went and got an MBA, had a bunch of like this is .com kind of peak, and I was like, my final project, I'm gonna kind of invent a business, and uh, did the same thing, and then it kind of took off for a few years. I didn't stick with that business, but it was fun to kind of take that practical learning you're doing. You're spending all that time getting that MBA and actually finding a way to apply it. And for you, getting that kind of seal of approval from your professors, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You had a chance to really what I've learned over time that's been in a kind of that secret weapon back in the day, right? Because now I have that business aspect of understanding what spreadsheets, financials, return on investment, time to market, near present value, all those things that I took for granted, and understand how to run budgets and how to do different things. It really comes in handy when I'm having conversations with customers. The challenge of that is that I'm really technical too. So I have a CISSP, I'm CCIE. So, depending on who you want to talk to, is this hat, that hat, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
from a business perspective, man, it's probably one of the best things I could have ever done is it gives a totally different landscape to go and talk and have, mature conversations with other CEOs and say, well, tell me how your business doing. Not technically,
Uh-huh.
tell me how your business doing. How does money flow? Because that's going to answer the question of how are we able to work together and how are we going to be able to support one another to make each other more successful at the end of the day.
I've worked with, hundreds and hundreds of salespeople entering the MSP space. And that's the message I try to get into their head. It's you're a business person, you're selling a business
Yeah.
solution. They get so wrapped in their head about not understanding the technology that it really kind of hurts their confidence. And it's like you can tell them and try to show them and model some different ways to structure the conversation. But man, that is the key right there. If you can come sit down and meet a stranger and say, "Tell me about your business." We do IT, so we got solutions, but just tell me about your business. I'll tell you about mine if you want to know. It's
100%.
people talking to people, really.
Yeah. part of my journey I had was I did an expat in Sydney, Australia for about 3.5 years. And in that process, we had to do cultural training. And coming from the US, we're always about business first.
Yeah.
Where in Australia, it's totally different. It's about relationship.
Yes.
Come over, shrimp on the Barbie. Let's figure out
Yes.
who it is, where it
Yes.
goes, and then we will talk about business, right?
Yes.
And so, now I brought that back with me. And one of the things you hear me say all the time, if you ever hear me talk, is, "Hey, man, I'm in the relationship business. I just happen to do IT, right?" That's
Right.
really where it comes down to.
When were you in Australia? What years?
So I was in Australia right after the Olympics, man. So from '99 to 2003.
Oh, hell yeah. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it was great.
I didn't go there, and you're right about that cultural difference. And I went there about 13 times from 2008 or 9 to about 2013. I was going constantly. I had some MSP clients down there, had a peer group down there, and I'm a lot like I'm an asshole, and I get real fired up, and these guys were all chill, and they humored me, you know what I mean? But you could tell
Hmm.
we weren't really connecting. And there was one guy who was a few years younger than me, and as you were talking, I was remembering, like, I went into Sydney and he's like, "Hey, let's go walk that bridge, whatever that bridge is. You can harness
Yep.
up and do that
Yep.
bridge walk, and let's go do this and this and this." And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Like, I just want to, like, can we get our work done? And I want to get out of here. But that was not it. And I'm pretty thick headed. So it took me a while to understand. And you just put the candle on the cake for me, that, like, that's what was happening. He was slowing me down and saying, let's get to know each
Yeah.
other. Still a good buddy today. The
Yep.
other guys I
Same
didn't
here.
build that personal with, I might hear from them, but we're not buddies. So
Yep,
no, you're
same here. I still friends with all my guys over there, and we continue to grow. We've seen our kids grow up, and we communicate quite a bit. At the end of the day, man, if I could go back and turn back time, that was probably some of the best times. From a travel and just the culture was very, very different.
You know what's so terrible, Corey? I went there so many times. My shortest trip was like I was on the ground for less than 24 hours. Like, just so stupid that I went there so often and in such a short amount of time. I'm like, I hate Australia. Like, I'm the only person in the world to say that, and I'm sure I don't hate Australia, but I never got to go and do any of the fun stuff. And I do look
It's
forward to going
it's
back one
amazing.
day.
Yeah, you definitely got to do it. I mean, it's a unique country, man. It's a melting pot, right? It's a melting pot of cultures, and I miss it. Yeah, it's pretty cool. When I always tell people when I came back to Texas, I had my 6-year-old son was with me, and when he came back, you think of a small African American kid coming back to Texas with an accent talking about father. Can you get the thing out of the boot? And they're like, what? Get the rubbish in the bin. They was like, what is going on with this kid, right? So very, very cool process, and for him to experience that, I mean, he talks about it all the time now. Is we did the bridge walk, we were in the harbor, we were out
Yes.
Bondi Beach.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Having to explain to him some of the cultures was different because topless beaches, here's where it
Yes.
goes,
Yes, yes,
but
yes.
it was good. It was good.
And I do love accents, like all types of accents, and, going down there and seeing people of different nationalities speaking different language. It's like, well, I'm used to your English accent, but throwing that Australian accent on top of whatever your native tongue is, it's like, that's so awesome. It was
It
just
is.
so cool to see those cultures interact with a different culture other than the United States. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
very different.
yeah, hell yeah. Well, that's awesome. Okay, so as you kind of go through this, you've been an MSP a long time. What do you kind of look at this current era we're in? I look at, kind of the hourly, advent of managed services, watching the 10 years of seeing that kind of evolve, and where we seem to be getting our heads around it, then security as a service, and then all the stuff else, automation, AI. What do you think about this era we're in right now?
Man, it's pretty crazy, man. It's almost like we've been building up to this for a long time, but I don't think we were paying attention. In my former day, I was a programmer, and I really got tight into the agile process. We did waterfall, move into the agile side, and really understood. And I think that's the competitive advantage that you see today. I think we're transitioning into more of an agile business model to be able to provide that value today, that MPV, right? The MVP, the most present value
Yeah.
is how will you get that today? not long term, not 5 years, 2 years, a year from now. It's like, what does that value your customer need from you today, this week, this month? And adapt to that and continue to move. And I think that's where it ultimately comes because their business is changing and evolving just like yours. Early on, I knew right away that I did not want to be in residential. I knew I wanted to be a managed services. And what we did was kind of unique. We branded our services right off the bat. So it's not, it's 5K client care, it's 5K support, 5K secure, 5K VoIP and all
Yes.
that stuff. So that allowed us to say no matter what we put in it, as long as we delivered those outcomes,
Yes.
I can put whoever, right? The stack didn't matter.
That's right.
And I think that what has allowed us to do. And I think we're getting back to that point where it's all going to be about business outcomes at the end of the day.
Yeah.
How are you securing me? How you ensure I meet the standards? How do you ensure where I need to get done? I don't care how you get there, but as long as I'm able to see those outcomes and able to check those boxes, we're good to go. And I think that's the ultimate place of where it comes from that perspective.
Interesting. And, I heard somebody say it in the last 5 years, probably closer to 5 years than 2 years ago, of saying, ensuring that your clients can access the network, making sure that it's, generally secure, and making sure people can get on the internet, check their email. That thing that we work so hard to get to is now kind of just table stakes.
Table
We
stakes.
assume that you're going to do that. What else can you do for those outcomes of those clients? Would you tend to agree with that?
100%, right?
Yeah.
Those are the things that they do it. It's all the things that they're looking for is that they don't understand what that technology can do to enhance their productivity and make them better, to really see that true return on investment from a technology perspective. And I think those are the pieces where we come in now to say, yeah, we're doing Office 365 and that's great. I can get email, I got Teams, but there's 4,000 products that thing can do that they're overlapping, and to really get that value out of it, are we really showing them how to be better in that productivity? Which brings us out of the thing. It makes you more sticky. It
Yeah.
makes you that true business consultant, and it makes you critical path to the success of their business, which makes it very hard to unseat you and move you out. And I always tell people even when we onboard, I say, look, guys, if you treat me like I'm that IT guy down the street, this relationship will not work. I need to be present, part of the team, having that conversation, just like I would if I worked for you. I need to be sitting at the table having a budget. We need to sit at the table and talk about, hey, I'm thinking about acquiring or I'm thinking about doing something. Now, I'm not there to change your mind, but I'm there to give you that insight that you're not thinking about what you pay me for as your true partner to go down that path and do that. I said,
Right.
because there's always, man, we're always the last ones to know, right? Hey, we bought this building down the street. We need internet. We're moving next week. What?
Yeah.
And it better happen. Like, hold up. I can't do that.
There's an old school kind of sales coach that I call him old school. He's only because he's like 80 years old now, and I love him to death. His name is Steven Schiffman, and he came up in the same era of like David Sandler and Zig Ziglar, and they were all kind of a crew back then doing their own things. And Steven was very against the core premise of Sandler. It was he doesn't believe in pain-based selling. And, I think it's okay to believe in pain-based selling, but he built his whole program on question-based selling. And his 5 categories of questions were, you know, what do you do? How do you do it? Why do you do it that way? And then really the fourth and fifth are, how can I help you do what you do better? And I've
Yeah,
literally spent the last 15 years trying to figure out that last category of, well, how can an MSP help, whatever random business do what they do better? I think I think now more than ever, we're going to be forced to, or given the beautiful opportunity to, or maybe 5, 10 years ago, we had to really dig to get in there because we were still trying to figure out just the regular nuts and bolts of managed services. But is that kind of what you're saying as well? How can we help you do what you do better?
100%.
Yeah.
Like I say, technology, they can care less, right? They don't care if you're in Sentinel-1, Huntress, or whatever that is. They don't care, right? Everybody does that, right? You pull back the covers, everybody's stack is the same. That's table stakes. It really, if you don't have an understanding of what your customer's doing, how they get paid, how they service their customer, what does customer service satisfaction looks like, that means if they're not doing a great job, that means they're not getting, the revenue, which means they next conversation they're going to have is, hey, we need to look at our IT budget. We think it's too much, it's too high. So you got to make sure that they're able to perform and provide that customer service, which enable you to continue to service them and be paid and go down that path as well.
Right.
And I agree. Today is probably bigger than ever. Having the ability to do AI and bringing in something new stuff. I think this is probably one of the most critical shifts in what we're going to see, that we can really help provide those outcomes by providing true value of saying, "Hey, tell me where you're struggling. Let me figure out how you leverage this product correctly. And let me figure out how you make your employees better." I don't believe it's going to replace them right away, but let me figure out how I can make Joe better. Let me figure out how I can make Jill better. They
Yeah.
need to work in tandem and they need to learn how to coexist. And let me show you from a business strategy perspective, not technology, how do you use this tool to make you better and your employees better together? And I
Yeah.
think that's the opportunity that we have in front of us to go down that path to be really good at that point.
Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, that makes so much sense. This week, I know we were just scheduled to talk earlier this week and just or my technology wasn't working, but I've done I think seven conversations like this week, and three of them were with two of them with like hardcore security people, and one of them was with this young woman who's like a policy person. She's not even in our technology space. Like she worked for uh Twitter back in the day. She was there during the kind of the internal policies that they had to create when Ukraine, Russia started popping off, and had to work with the policy team to figure out how they were going to handle images of prisoners of war. And so, they started seeing these images come up, and they're like, oh, we have to come up with a policy for this. So I've had this really intense week, and around the cybersecurity, I had one guy who was just blew my mind, so intelligent, and he said, "We're doing this and this." And then I talked to an old buddy of mine who was a client a million years ago, just killing it, astronomical, financial results, business results, and he really leveled my game up. And I'm leading into this really long. I apologize, but I'm used to talking to, the $2 million MSP who's, struggling with how to get, their 15 user client to take cybersecurity serious. And,
Yeah.
I've just had the conversations, heard the conversations. I don't have any value to add to that. Listening to my buddy Dan, who's like, yeah, we trying for us to try to do what we do with a 50 user company is too hopeless.
Yeah.
It's kind of hopeless. They don't have the budget. They don't have the sense of urgency. They don't have the regulations hitting them. So, and what he kind of shared was two things will make a business take cybersecurity serious, either an event or a regulation, but they're only going to take the regulation serious if there's a real consequence if they don't.
Exactly. I
So
agree.
it made me, and I'm a pretty optimistic guy, but it kind of made me feel helpless with my 5 million and under MSPs who serve the 50 users and under as their predominant client. Help me be less kind of scared about that if able.
Yeah. I think that, at the end of the day, AI is a game changer from that perspective, because you have to have that governance and security before you turn on that monster, right?
And they
And so
want
that
to, don't
cog
they?
in the wheel, huh?
And they want to turn it on.
100%. So you hold that carrot out there because they want it so bad that they'll do anything they need to do that. So now you can go in there and talk about DLP. You can talk about security. You can talk about hardening your conditional access policy. All the things that you needed to do, you need to have that. And what we lead at that is that, look, you already have holes and gaps and things like that. If you had an employee that did nothing all day but scrape your files and go and search and figure out how to get searched, they could find all the data they want today because you don't have it set up correctly. It's not like it's hidden. It's just not easily accessible.
Yeah.
But when you turn on an engine like AI or turn on Copilot, turn something into your environment, now you've amplified the problem a thousandfold, which is immediately engaged, right? Show me the salary of Josh today. Boom, is there. I
Right.
could have saw it if I wanted to, but I didn't. I'm just not that diligent in searching. But if I wanted to, I'll go find it. But now it's amplified,
Mhm.
and so that's why it's very important that it creates, obviously HR issues. It creates payment issues, payroll issues. It creates a lot of stuff. So that's why I think now is when you start to think about the AI conversations, it really brings and drags the cybersecurity conversations on because now
Wow.
you got to move forward with that. Because if I don't go and harden you with DLP, data moves out. If I'm using the free model, I'm sharing data on the web and it's training their models. It's doing all those things that you don't want it to do, but they think it's really cool because they heard ChatGPT does this awesome stuff.
Yeah.
But you have to go put in the guardrails, go lock it down, because again, then you have the conversation about hallucinations and it makes things up. I
Mm,
have them all the time. I was like, look, I was having a conversation with ChatGPT the other day and I was like, hey, can you show me the sources of where you got this?
yes.
And it said, you know what? I don't even have the sources, but this looks like what you wanted. So I just made it up for you.
At least it's honest.
And I was like, that's not something you want your lawyer or I don't want a blueprint from my engineering and architecture firm that says, hey, that really doesn't measure what that should be. So I just made up how tall that beam should have been in the middle of that building, right? No, we don't want that.
What does DLP stand for?
Data loss prevention.
Oh, of course. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so this is fascinating. So, not for nothing. So I know an infinitesimally little bit about lots of things. In this last year and a half, we developed our own tool for our company, Bering McKinley, for it's we call it the Vision app, and it has financial dashboards, standards, training, all the things. But we added in an AI agent, and so it's called Giphy was the agent, and then my partner is really brilliant with these things and he's talking about rags and all these things,
Yeah.
putting all this stuff in. I was just blown away at like, okay, you're explaining to me a way that I can understand it. I'm sure I do not really understand it, but it was one of those moments where I was like, if we didn't do that right, then so much garbage would be put in and it would be hallucinating every which way from Sunday.
Hmm.
And then I kind of think of my MSPs who, for themselves, they're turning on Copilot and they think they're being really diligent and they're doing a good job. But I didn't really think about like for their clients, for your clients, how will you shepherd them through that? And I loved Corey, dangle that. Hey, you want this? I can get you hyped up about that. Along the way, we're going to have to talk about security and whatnot from the outside, from the inside out.
Yep.
Yeah,
You
that's
you gotta
cool.
do it. You gotta do it. I mean, the White House has published AI guidelines that they wanna follow. Everybody has an industry of how that works, but you cannot just say, "Hey, Imma give you this nice shiny object," but not put in all the protections in place because, again, once this horse is out of the barn, it's hard to put it back in. It has exposure to everything. I love what your partner doing, putting a RAG model. That's him saying, I'm going to lock down what it has access to. I'm going to put the guardrails and say, you can only build off of this. You can only do this. And nothing comes out of that. Don't go out there searching the web and make stuff up. If it's not in here, then it doesn't exist.
Right.
And those are the places where now they're looking at you as that true advisor to come back and say, "Hey man, you're helping me do what I got to get done," because it's your reputation in line. It's if it's making up stuff or doing whatever, it's really your reputation putting it out there. You want to make sure that it's speaking your vision, your mission, your voice,
Yes.
and it's protecting your customer and everything. And then I just did a podcast earlier today talking to a lawyer, and you need to make sure that you have true legal documents and things in place as you start to talk about AI and cybersecurity, that you understand that you're leveraging a tool, what you're responsible for a tool, what is the tool doing, how are you leveraging the tool, and that you're using AI. Because there's a lot of regulations that come up and saying like people are using it for HR. There's regulations out there that says, hey, you cannot allow an AI model to help you determine whether to hire or do things, because then those biases come in, right? There's legal cases out there today where people are getting sued because the AI made a decision based on what data it had, and it was very biased about how it
Right.
went, and they proved it.
That's
And now
awesome.
they're in a bad place.
That's I hadn't thought about, what kind of, case law was evolving already, but it
Yeah,
surely, I'm sure it is. That makes
it's a
sense.
lot.
We'll be right back with more, but first, here's a quick message from Bering McKinley.
Most MSPs are constantly busy, chasing tickets, projects, and fires. But without structure, it's hard to know if the business is really improving. Vision from Bering McKinley is the system that helps you work on your business, not just in it. It connects leadership strategy with daily execution. Vision aligns people, process, and performance, creating clarity and rhythm from goals to results. And the Vision app brings that structure to life, helping you create policies, track goals, review KPIs, and collaborate with your BMK consultant all in one place. Behind it all, Jetson AI, your assistant inside Vision, helps you find answers, generate insights, and take action faster. With Vision, you gain visibility, accountability, and measurable growth. You're not guessing, you're improving. Vision, Jetson, and the Vision app, your path from strategy to results. Start transforming your business today.
All right, let's get back to the conversation.
So, all right, so I've got two angles to this topic. So, at some point, if not already, you're going to go to one of your clients. You're going to say, "You've shown some curiosity, or I've gotten you excited about what Copilot can do." All right. So you're going to get them excited. They're going to say, "Yeah, let's do it." Okay. That's all largely true, I imagine. Okay.
Yep, exactly.
And now I'm going to go in this weird angle, but stay with me. So many MSPs say, "I hate hourly. Hourly is bad. I only want recurring revenue," which I'll argue. I'll die on that hill. I won't die on many hills. I love that hourly work. I love that project work for clients. How do you envision monetizing that type of work? Because it's new, it's very different. Are you going to feel compelled that I have to find a recurring revenue model around this? Or how are you going to, if you've thought about it at
Yeah.
all yet, which I'm sure you have?
Yeah, we actually have a product that we do that. We become their chief AI strategy officer in a fractional way, just like you do VCIO or anything from that perspective. And what we do is we go in there and we bottle up a block of a kind of like a block of hour contract over the course of a year where we come in and we help you strategize and you get hours to help you determine what that looks like. And what that ultimately looks like, it starts off as a project to get you to a point where you're looking at all the departments. So just literally, we come in, we look at it and say, hey, where are you struggling? We talk to the executives, we talk to marketing, we talk to sales, we talk to engineering, we talk to whatever. We find out what their pain points are. And then once we're done, we create an LLM based on our interviews and everything we did so they can go back and talk to it and figure out why we said what we said at any time we said to them. And then we say, all right, based on what we heard from marketing, they want to be able to do this, this, and this, and we categorize them in small, medium, and large projects. And then we help them build those projects out, starting from small, medium, and large. We help them build those out and whatever. And then now it requires us to help support them because what happens is I may start out with Claude 1.x. Now I'm on Claude 4.5, or I may need to switch to ChatGPT 4, then it went to 4.5. And every time it does that, it breaks, right? So there's some support effort needs that. That's where my programming background comes in. It says, hey, I need to understand models, how I look like, and where it comes from. And that becomes the recurring revenue because we're training them, we're updating it. And what happens is it just continues to grow. You start off saying, hey, I get this report. I get these dashboards. It looks awesome. Now I want something else in the dashboard. Well, they don't know how to do it. They're going to come to you and say, hey, can I pull this in? Sure. Boom, boom. Project enhance. Theme goes up. Now I'm continuing to support it and going down that path instead ahead of the point from that perspective and making sure you keep the guardrails in place. And then we added another component where we actually offer them training that's specific to their organization so that we create AI champions from baseline AI, what it is. And if it's specific for legal or specific for architects or specific for HR, we want them to understand one, how they use it in their organization, how they use it in their discipline, and how they continue to get better. So that with what we do is kind of that recurring revenue model that goes on because now we're helping them strategize and really helping them go through that process. And it's not just the products we build, it's also looking back at their line of business applications because all of them say we do AI. We want to make sure one, they're doing AI because everybody got this email at the beginning of the year says, hey, we're changing our data policy and protection. What that meant was, hey, we're going to use your data to train our model. You good? And so we really will know what that means, right? And how they do it so they understand that their data is being used. So now we can go back and ask them the question of, okay, so what are you doing with the data? How can I not get my data to be a part of that? And that may require that our end customer decide on another product because that's just too much. They're not willing to give up all of that information and things like that. But without us, they wouldn't know any different. So there's opportunities in that place where you're more on a consultant base, still doing some product development, kind of a evaluation. But I think that's where the model for recurring revenue is going to go in. Is supporting that model you built out, adding new features, and continue to help them evolve and grow the AI into into their business to help them become more productive, and to get better outcomes at the end of the day.
You speak very clearly about this topic, and clearly you've put a lot of thought into it. And obviously you're smart. Yeah, everyone's smart, but do you- I would think that in order for an MSP to go down this path, at the very least, they would have to have a lot of curiosity about how it works. Now, you mentioned you have a programming background, so that helps. A lot of
Hmm.
MSPs won't necessarily have that, and whatnot. What do you think? Like, will most MSPs figure this out, or do you think they'll kind of lose the storyline? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I think every birds of a feather flock together, right? It's like you got to get that muscle memory, so you got to spend some time with it and play with it and understand it and get some training. You need to be around others who are doing it, and from that perspective, and saying, "Hey, I got to go out and jump in and go have some conversations." You need to be having conversations with your customers. I'm telling all MSPs that I speak to that if you're not having a conversation about AI with your customer, there's another MSP that is, right? And they will be their customer shortly. So you need to go at least have the conversation so you at least know where to go and start your journey. But you should be trying to adopt that inside of your organization, become part of organizations is that's saying, hey, we're here to support you and learn from that, listening, playing with the tools, understanding what the tools in, reading what the government and regulations are putting out from a European perspective, looking at it from a US perspective, and look at all the change that's happening with OpenAI and Meta and Grok and X and all those guys and figuring out where it comes from so that you get an understanding of man, there what model is what. Once you get that pace, you don't have to be the expert, but one of the things you do have to do is you need to understand where and how to go ask it questions because it can help you itself, right? Where else have we ever had an opportunity where I can go into an AI model and say, I want Chuck Robbins, I want Zig Ziglar, I want all these people to be there and think like them, and then say, when I ask you a question, I want you to answer me in the way that they would talk to me. Now I got the best consulting coming at me, and what it's doing is making me think outside the box. It's challenging me, right? Very, very different place of where there's really no reason why you shouldn't feel. I believe it's a leveler because it's like, man, I can go out there and say some of the best minds, and no matter what we do, I can ask it what it is that I needed to do and have it feed it to me, understanding that it's giving me reference point, not the gospel, but
Yeah.
is making me think
Yes.
differently
Yeah.
to be different. It's truly a strategic advisor to you, and that's how you need to be to your customer.
There's so much in that. There's so much in there, Corey. Okay, so we think about the MSP. Who's coming to mind is my brother-in-law has a real nice size MSP. Just like you, just kind of knows shit and can make anything happen. And so, over the last year, I've been, just tracking him as he is building out Copilot in his network, and he's describing how he's doing it and whatnot. I'm like, okay, first thing I clock is it's you doing it. All right, that's awesome because you will figure it out. Then the next thing I think of is how are you going to bring this to your clients? And what does your workforce look like if you're going to try to bring this? Because you personally aren't going to scale.
For sure.
In kind of the early to mid days of MSSP, saw a few MSPs peel off and just go straight MSSP and collaborate with other MSPs, and that was awesome. What do you think? Are we going to see a generation of businesses that are like AISPs, where it's just like, you know what, the MSPs keep doing what you're doing. I'm just going to come in here I don't need to know about your network security per se. I don't need to know how to reset a password. I'm here to just build this infrastructure and use whoever you have as an MSP to help. What do you think? Is there
Yeah,
a business model there?
I do. I believe it's going to evolve very similar to how the MSP happened, how governance risk and compliance happened, how all those things happen, because there's some limit of liability that comes across. You can't proofread your own book, right? You can't you can't do that.
Yeah.
So it's cool if you create this model to where each of the businesses or something you create have an opportunity to come back to each other. So if I started on the AI side, I can move it to my MSSP or a partner of mine, which also brings back that the MSP is actually doing the work at the background from that perspective and going down that path versus me going in there and trying to do it all. Because again, it's like Fox watching hen house, right? Every now and then you're gonna steal a chicken,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
and it's gonna be where it's gonna be. I do believe that model's ultimately coming, and I believe you're gonna have some guys who do nothing but guide that strategy, work very closely with an MSP because they're the one who are in the background turning the knobs, turning up security, doing things from that perspective. I believe that that's going to be a very critical path to saying, hey, I'm going in here laying out the strategy, but I don't do the work. I'm
Right.
here to ensure that we're going down the right path and focus. And in that place, I need a lot more business direction, strategic thinkers than doers,
Hmm.
right? And that's why I believe that model is going to grow and be well at that point.
All right. So I'm gonna turn us, right a few degrees here. Now, we've talked
Mhm.
a little bit about security. We've talked a lot about AI. I am a terrible visionary of what's going to come next. If you asked me 2 years ago, I would have said MSPs are just going to kill it with automation. Roost, I went to the Flow conference. I'm always, 2 steps behind on technology. So I sat in there for 2 days and was just like, this is amazing. Every MSP is going to go out there and have something to talk about their clients with to figure out how to improve their business flow using automation. And, you know, so far I'm very wrong. But what do you, I mean, what I mostly see is guys get some, RPA and they're figuring out how they can help their business, which is awesome. I would
Yeah.
have expected a faster deployment to their clients. What's your take on that?
Yeah. What I think is that we're going to take a step back and go back into the fundamentals, right? I think there's a lot of MSPs that have been just running for the sake of running and don't have a good process in place to automate, right? And if I have a bad process and I automate that process, all I've done is 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 amplified that bad process tenfold, right? So I believe that you got to go back to the basics. I'm a big sports guy, right? When I go all the trick plays has fell out, it's time to go back to just the fundamental, hike the ball and run,
Yes,
right?
sir.
That's it.
Yes.
Run and pass, right? I don't need no flea flickers. I don't
Yes.
need no reverses or anything. If I
Yes.
can't do the basic run and pass,
Yes.
the rest of the stuff's not going to work.
Yes.
Get your operations, get your processes in place, get your procedures in place, get those things, make sure they're tight, understand where those gaps and put in those fail safes where you can identify quickly if something goes wrong and keep it in the rails and continue to reevaluate those. Then go back and figure out which processes do I really need to go automate and make sure it's happening. Because what we found out as well is that a lot of people are automating bad stuff and it's so far gone then now they're spending a whole lot of time undoing and unraveling what that cost them from that perspective. And it's costing them more than it did when they originally implemented it. So go back and spend time on that process and that basics. And then at the end of the day, now start moving forward and process and automate those things that really make sense. That's really going to bring that bigger bang for the buck
Yeah.
and continue to move forward. And then move that. Then now that you have that, that's that goodwill. At the end of the day, when you think about want to exit or do something in that process is going to save you a lot of time to grow, and it help you keep your culture inside very well as well. Because that's one more less tedious thing that a tech has to do, where they can focus on training, professional development, and work on some projects they wouldn't normally have access to. So it really works well.
Yeah. Hell yeah. That's been just a theme that we've paid attention to at Bering McKinley over the last, probably 4 years in particular. It's just policy and process. And we spent the last 2 years attacking policy. We've got hundreds and hundreds of just good outcome based policies. This is how we do dispatch. This is how we manage a ticket. This is how we enter our time. And watching clients kind of go through this database and seeing what's interesting to them and what's not. The overall theme is we hear everyone say, "Oh yeah, that's how we do that. Oh, that's how we do that." And it's like, okay, cool. Now show me where it's written down. Oh, it's not
Not.
written down. Okay, why isn't it written down? No one will ever look at it. Okay, that's that. I get that for sure, but we can't skip it. We have to get that policy in
Yeah.
place. I've kind of come to this idea that policy before procedure, right? And then procedure before automation, of course. But I don't know that everyone agrees with me on that. What do you
Now, yeah. I watch a lot of one of the shows I like, Gordon Ramsay, man. I love him because of who he is and what
Yeah,
he
yeah,
does,
yeah.
right? And every time he walks into a restaurant, the first thing he looks at, he asks them, "Do you have your recipes written down?" And they're like, "No, it's in my head. It's right here." That's it. So you get hit by a bus, this restaurant is done. It's over, right? And then how do you know to tweak it? How do you know to improve it? How do you do whatever? So the first thing he forces them to do, which they hate, is to write the recipes down.
Nice, nice,
Right?
nice,
And
nice.
so I believe you have to write the recipe down. And if you look at it from a perspective, you say, how am I going to bring in automation into my PSA or whatever it is? I don't have my contracts in there. I don't have a way to track time. It's not associated to anything. So how am I going to automate? It doesn't have a contract to write against.
That's right.
Even if it writes into the ticket, it's not going against where it is. You can't really see what utilization is. So if I don't have that in place, automation is not going to fix that. It's
Will
going to
not.
make it worse.
Yes, it will.
Right.
Yes, it
And
will.
so you got to have those things put down and sit down. But I also think of, I look at it from a way that I learned a long time ago that I used to think that everybody who worked for me thought like me. It's just their
Hmm.
business. They love it. Here's what it's going to do. They're going to jump on the bomb and roll with it. Right.
Yeah,
Writing down those procedures and processes and doing those things was a way for me to be to live on and to show them my vision of how I expected to do. It is written, it is where it needs to get done. So it does help them understand why Corey thinks the way he does and
yes,
why it has. It's an opportunity for me to make sure that what I want to do is moving forward in that way versus always in my head. So that's why I think it's extremely, extremely important to
yeah.
set the vision, set a goal, and I call our procedures and processes and procedures. They're our north star. Whenever you have a question, refer back to that.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. That,
If you don't have it, you're like,
man, isn't that the truth? I was I was talking to a client today, and he's not a dormant client, but you know we're very active with him, but we don't get
yeah,
to speak with the owner very often. And I asked him if we could meet for half hour this morning because I was just getting kind of some signals that his people are frustrated. And, you know, they
yeah,
love him and they want to do well by him, but a little fighting internally and whatnot. And, you know, I get on the call with him and I say, hey, you know, I'm just kind of picking this up. I'm probably wrong, but I'm hearing this frustration. You've got these kind of supervisor people who are awesome and they're battling and they're working with the consultant and, you know, they're doing tasks, getting tasks done. Um, but if I'm right about this observation, I think I might have some thoughts for you on why that is. And you know, he plays things pretty close to the vest. We're not good buddies yet, but I shared with him. I said, "Your team doesn't know where you're going." You know, and as a
yeah,
younger consultant, I never would have picked up on that. It's like they don't know
mhm,
where you're going. So when you kind of abdicate over to your supervisors, it just like just make things work. That's fair. But as they start asking the team to do kind of tougher and tougher things, your managers don't have a real big why other than, well, Barry
yeah,
McKinley said that's how we should do it. That's not
yeah,
enough. And
exactly.
so kind of getting his, and you know, and we kind of took this really quick journey of, I don't know, you don't make a good living. And, you know, I'm not trying to get rich and I'm not trying to, you know, sell for $10 million one day. And we just kind of had to dig a little bit for him to kind of start getting this idea that I wonder what your wife wants. I wonder what you could envision if you did sell for
Yeah,
$2 million in 5 years. What emotions and feelings would you attach to that? What could you do for other people? And, you know, I don't know that we, you know, got a 180-degree turn out of them, but I think we got the gears turning enough. And I bring that to you to say, you know, you said that vision and mission and where we're going. And man, that's just so underdeveloped in most small businesses. And that
yeah,
vision of where are we going? I'm addicted to it over the last couple of years. How about you?
Yeah, you have to be, man. I mean, because if I always live by, if you call yourself a leader and you look back and nobody's behind you, then you're not much of a leader. And but it also says, hey, they need to understand why you're doing why you're doing. Why are you asking for me to put time in my case? Why are you asking me to do these things? And then what we do is we show them there's a reason for that. You coming to me, I'm not saying that you're not busy. But if you are not putting cases in there and I got, 6 people at 40 hours a week and looking where it comes from with 80% utilization, I expect this many hours to be done. When I look at it and I see the reports and you saying, man, we need another person, I said, but out of the 6 people, we only got 40 hours. What happened? Somebody owes me money.
That's
So let's flip the script, right?
That's
Let's say,
right.
let me look at it from my lens, right? Because they look at it from their lens, and which is not wrong. They look at it from their lens. It's like, man, we're overworked. I'm doing so much. I need a raise, I need whatever it is. I'm like, great, I understand that. Let me look at it from my lens. You're asking me for more people. I got 6 people. I'm well under 6 people working less than 40 hours a week. Doesn't matter. Somebody needs to cut me a check. 'Cause something happened, right? And that's it. And again, I'm just giving them my lens.
Yeah.
And so now when I sit down and say, "Man, I wanna hire somebody," well, which customer is being utilized that we're not pulling? Which customer is draining all of our time? Is it the one that's paying us the least amount of money, getting the most work? What does that look like? How can I move people around? I don't have what I need to make those decisions. And there's no way that you can have what you need by not putting the cases and the notes in there to make an accurate conversation with your customer with documentation and other things. So this is where we have to work together and follow that vision in order for us to provide the level of customer care and the support that we need. The bar is here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is why we need to be doing these things and saying, trust me, I do not wake up in the morning saying, let me go and look and see how many people is not putting their time in so I can go and yell and scream. What I'm looking at is saying how many people are charging the word that are producing so that we can go and produce more
Yes.
and how we go out there and continue to get better.
That's right.
But what if I don't have the information? I can't do that. It's like driving down the road and not knowing if I don't have my gas needle doesn't
That's
work. I either
right.
got to keep filling it up every 5 minutes
Yep.
or wait till I run out of gas.
Yep. That's it. That's it. Yeah. That
Yeah.
that
So
that just that one little example is just, you know, we come in and we work with a new client. We're just getting to know them, and my first three things I ask for is, show me your agreement gross profit reports, show me your service salaries to service revenue ratio on your P&L, and show me your billable utilization. I if I go down that path, they will either be like, "Yep, here, 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 help us figure out why we're not performing well enough," or they're gonna say, "How do I do that again? Remind me what that is." And it's like, man, the industry got us so hyped up on, recurring revenue and managed services, and it's like, yeah, but they didn't tell you the other side of the story of how to actually measure it and what to do about the number. I can work with a company with, $800,000 a month of recurring revenue, and they'll tell me, "Oh, no, we don't, our techs don't have to enter the time, the money's here or it's not," and it's like, wow, that's terrible that that's happened to our industry. Or I'll say, "Show me your agreement grocery profit reports." And it's, remind me what the formula for that is. Where would I get that? And it's like, you just been bamboozled. You've been bamboozled by the industry, man.
or you sit there and
Yeah,
say, tell me what your PSA are. It's just my glorified ticketing system. I say, no, it's not.
that's right. That's right.
It's there for a reason.
That's right.
And you have to make sure you're pulling that information out because it helps you grow. It helps you keep a status. At the end of the day, I always tell my guys, the reason why I need this information that says I need to be able to show and judge because you put that on me because nobody has more skin in the game. And I tell them nobody has more skin in this game than I do.
That's
So
right.
if you think I don't care, then you're something else is wrong.
Right.
I said, but I need to be able to look at this information and know and predict as fast as I can that if I lose this customer, or this one's looking somewhere else, or who I need to go done, which one of you do I have to? I got to make a decision. Which one of you do I let go first? And I said, the ones that you got to sit down with is you make it very easy. When I look at 6 people, 40 hours a week, whoever put the most time in may not be the right time, but he's probably following the toll. So that's what it is. The one who probably doing all the work, put no time in, you might be the one at the top of the list because that's what you're telling me that I am not following suit to go do what I need to go get done. I said, those are the decisions that we have to make. And that's why these numbers are very, very important. It's not that I'm throwing up against the wall and say, any, meeny, miny, mo. No, I'm looking at data to make sure that we go down that path to show how we move forward and where we go. Which customer, I walk into them and say, which customer do you want us to get rid of? Well, I don't like it when these call. I said, yeah, they don't call, but they pay on time. They do whatever they got to get done and they have what I get. But let's look at their cases. And the reason why they call is because I'm looking at first time resolutions is really, really low.
Right.
I'm looking at when they call in, your attitude has shown, and your attitude is representing that in their case to the point where they're, how about if we change? How about if we take this opportunity? I learned not to use the word change.
Oh, there
We
you
have an opportunity here
Yes, 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 yes.
to make this better.
Yes, yes. Well,
But
NLP.
without data, I can't do that, right?
Yes.
You can't do that.
Well, there's that blocking and tackling that you're talking about. You know, we start this conversation with all the amazing things happening in the world and where we might have
Mhm.
different revenue opportunities, and we end up with the blocking and tackling. Enter your
No
time,
doubt,
look at the data. It's true today as it ever has been.
for
Well,
sure.
Corey, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, man. Let me ask you, where can people go and find you out in the world?
Yeah, man. Corey Kirkendoll, 5K Technical Services, www.5ktech.com. You can also look for me on LinkedIn, always out there searching. And then also, you see us out there on the MSP Unplugged podcast. I'm out there giving back to MSPs all the time. I'm an open book. Please reach out. I love to help our community because I live by the motto when one MSP coughs, we all catch the cold. So there's really no reason for that. Let's make sure that we stick together and make sure we're doing the right thing.
And what is the K? What does the 5K mean, by the way?
Yeah, 5K was when I started my business, I needed to bring something in. One, it was a marketing thing because I knew that if I had a number in the beginning, that I would always be at the top of the list no matter what I was, right? So only thing that's above me is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4,
That's
right?
awesome.
5 is always there. And it also represents my family, right? Me, my 3 kids, my granddaughter, 5K. That's what we are.
Outstanding,
Yeah,
man. Right on, Corey. I hope you'll join us again, buddy.
I will. Josh, thank you very much, man.
Bye
Good to be
now.
here.
Bye,
Take
everyone. Oh,
care.
and everyone, make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you think we earned it. It means a big deal to us. So thank you.